Emma Carter sat by the window of her small Chicago apartment, staring at the city lights blinking like quiet questions, her phone vibrating on the table beside her, and for a moment, she thought about ignoring it. She had spent so many nights alone that the quiet had become familiar, almost comforting, yet tonight felt different. A restlessness buzzed through her that she could not shake. The hum of traffic below sounded louder than usual, as if it was echoing the questions in her own mind. She sighed and picked up her phone, seeing a message from her friend Lily, always bubbly, always trying to push Emma out of her safe shell. Try something new, the message said, say yes to 11 dates in a year. It's an experiment, for fun. Emma laughed quietly, shaking her head. She had heard of these challenges before, dating apps and blind dates, yet the idea of saying yes to strangers felt strange, even reckless. She was 32, careful, cautious, and after the heartbreak of last year, she had promised herself that rushing into anything would be a mistake, but the words lingered, tugging at her curiosity. 11 dates, she whispered, imagining what that could look like. The first date was Mark, a soft-spoken man with kind eyes. They met at a small cafe in Lincoln Park. He smiled nervously, almost shyly, and Emma noticed the way he fiddled with his coffee cup. She felt a spark of empathy for him, for herself. The conversation flowed politely, about books, work, childhood memories, and she realized that it had been a long time since she had met someone who genuinely wanted to listen. Yet by the end of the night, the spark fizzled. He was distant in text messages. Afterward, polite but uncommitted, and Emma felt the familiar pang of disappointment, yet she shrugged, reminding herself that this was part of the plan, part of the experiment. Date 2 came with Daniel, tall, charming, with a laugh that filled the quiet gaps of conversation. Emma found herself smiling more than she had in months, yet something about him felt uncertain. He spoke of his dreams and ambitions, of places he wanted to see, but there was a restlessness in his tone, a hesitation that mirrored her own. They parted with a warm hug, and again, the connection seemed fragile, but it taught Emma that chemistry alone was not enough. She needed something steadier. The next few dates blurred together, each man bringing a different experience, different lessons. Emma started to notice patterns in herself, what she wanted, what she feared. Date 4, Ryan, made her laugh until her cheeks hurt, but he vanished afterward. Date 5 was quiet, contemplative, and left her feeling thoughtful but unsettled. By date 6, she began to understand that dating was not just about finding someone. It was about discovering herself in the process. Each person reflected a piece of her own desires, weaknesses, and strengths. Emma's friends teased her endlessly, Lily calling her the date collector, yet Emma didn't mind. She liked seeing life from different angles. She liked learning how to talk to people she would never meet again, how to be present for a few hours without expecting forever, and even when disappointment crept in, she found a strange comfort in the rhythm, the push and pull of human connection. One night, after a particularly awkward dinner with someone new, she laughed at herself, realizing that each failure, each misstep, was teaching her more than she could have imagined. As the year progressed, Emma found herself approaching the 11th date with curiosity, not expectation. She had learned to enjoy the moments themselves, the small gestures, the laughter, the shared stories. Date 7 was a rainy evening walk that ended in silence but felt profound. Date 8 was a coffee shop conversation that lingered in memory. Date 9 and 10 were dinners with sparks and misses. By the time the 11th date approached, she had no idea who Noah Brooks would be, only that he was from Vancouver, in town for work, and his message was different from the others, simple, honest, not flashy or clever. Would you like to meet for dinner? It said. Emma felt a pull she hadn't felt before. Something in the plainness of the text made her stop scrolling. She stared at it for a long time, feeling a strange combination of excitement and caution. She reminded herself that it was just another date, but she could not deny that her heart stirred at the thought. Putting on her coat, stepping out into the cold night air, she felt a flicker of anticipation she hadn't allowed herself in a long time. The streets of Chicago felt alive, every light and shadow seeming to hum with possibility. Arriving at the small Italian restaurant, Emma noticed Noah immediately, standing quietly outside, hands in his pockets, scanning the street. His calm presence was different from the nervous energy of others she had met. When he saw her, he smiled, not boldly, but with a warmth that reached her chest. It was a smile that said he was present, that he wanted to be here, and in that moment, Emma felt something shift inside her, a mixture of hope and fear. As they stepped inside, the restaurant smelled of garlic and baked bread, a comforting scent that made conversation easier. The first minutes were filled with polite introductions, small talk about weather and work, but gradually the conversation deepened. They shared childhood memories, favorite books, stories that shaped them. Emma felt herself relaxing in a way she hadn't on the other dates. There was no performance, no pretending, just two people meeting in quiet honesty. By the time dessert arrived, Emma realized that she was smiling freely, laughing at jokes that weren't forced, feeling a connection that was gentle, steady, not overwhelming, but real. It was not fireworks or drama, it was the quiet recognition that this person might be someone worth knowing, worth risking disappointment for. And as she left the restaurant later, stepping back into the crisp night air, Emma felt a strange flutter of excitement and nervousness, the pull of something unknown. Something that might turn her carefully measured world upside down. The next morning, Emma woke with a flutter in her chest, replaying the night before, Noah's calm smile, the ease of conversation, how her laughter had felt genuine for the first time in months. She made coffee, but the aroma could not compete with the thoughts racing through her mind. She wondered if she had imagined the connection, if it would fade once they texted or saw each other again, yet there was a warmth she could not shake. Noah texted almost immediately, a simple good morning followed by a question about her day. It was gentle, not demanding, and Emma smiled, replying quickly, feeling a small thrill each time her phone buzzed. Over the next days, their messages became a rhythm, a soft thread connecting them, short jokes, small observations, late-night goodnights, and Emma found herself waiting for his texts with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She realized she had not felt this anticipation in a long time. Their second date was a walk along the lakeshore, the wind crisp, carrying the scent of water and fallen leaves. Noah spoke of Vancouver, of the mountains and the ocean, of projects he had worked on, and Emma shared stories of her childhood in Chicago, her family, her love for books and quiet corners. With every word, the distance between them seemed to shrink. She noticed the way he listened, really listened, without trying to impress or control the conversation. It made her want to open up, to trust, to hope. Over the following weeks, dates became more frequent, dinners at small restaurants, coffee shop afternoons, quiet nights walking the city streets, the kind of simple, ordinary moments that carried extraordinary meaning. Emma felt herself drawn to him not by passion alone, but by comfort, by the feeling that being with him was easy, natural, a relief after months of awkward dates and disappointments. Yet beneath the comfort, a tension quietly simmered. Noah's time in Chicago was limited. He would return to Vancouver in 2 months, and that thought gnawed at Emma, a soft shadow she could not ignore. They shared laughter, and sometimes silence, each comfortable in the other's presence. One evening, sitting in a small cafe with rain tapping gently against the window, Noah reached across the table and touched her hand lightly. Emma's heart skipped, a simple gesture, yet it carried weight, and she felt a warmth she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time. They spoke about their fears too, the quiet loneliness that sometimes caught them off guard, the fragility of connections, and Emma realized that she was learning not only about Noah, but about herself, how deeply she could feel, how willing she was to take a chance. As autumn settled in, the colors of the trees mirrored the subtle shifts in Emma's heart, golds and reds and soft browns. She started imagining life with someone who could understand her, someone who could laugh at her awkward jokes, who could make her feel safe yet alive. She started counting moments instead of dates, noticing the small things, the way Noah smiled when she told a story, the way he remembered little details from conversations. the quiet gestures that spoke louder than words. Yet the awareness of his impending departure lingered, like a delicate tension in the air. One evening, as they walked along the river, Noah finally admitted it, his voice low but steady. "Emma, I leave in 2 months." She felt her chest tighten, a mix of fear and longing. She had promised herself not to fall too fast, not to get attached, yet every day with him had made that promise fragile. The thought of losing him before it had even begun felt unbearable. Emma wanted to argue, to suggest plans, to find a way to hold on, but she stayed silent, feeling the weight of reality pressing against the warmth she felt. They continued to walk, the city lights reflecting on the water, silent between them yet full of unspoken words. She realized that love sometimes meant leaning into the uncertainty, letting feelings exist even when they hurt, letting herself feel fully, even if the ending was unknown. At home that night, Emma lay awake, staring at the ceiling, turning over every detail of their days together, questioning whether love was about safety or courage, whether it was wiser to protect herself or to risk everything for a connection that might slip away. She thought about all the previous dates, all the lessons she had learned, and how Noah felt different, not just another person passing through her life, but someone who stirred her heart in ways she hadn't expected. Days passed in a blur of work, texts, and stolen moments together. Emma noticed how her heart had grown restless, no longer satisfied with routine. She craved the presence of someone who challenged her, who made her feel alive, and Noah did that effortlessly, without trying, without demands, yet always aware of the clock ticking, counting down to his departure. The tension between desire and reality grew stronger with every passing day. They shared small adventures, like exploring hidden bookstores and late-night ice cream runs, ordinary things made extraordinary by their connection. Yet every time she pictured his return to Vancouver, a tight knot formed in her stomach. Emma realized that loving someone could feel like standing on the edge of a cliff, thrilling and terrifying at once. The risk of falling never truly left. One evening, as they sat under a street lamp in a quiet park, leaves swirling around their feet, Noah looked at her and said, "I don't know what will happen when I leave, but these weeks, they matter to me." Emma felt a lump in her throat. The vulnerability in his voice mirrored her own. She wanted to tell him that she felt the same, that she had already begun to imagine a future with him, yet the fear of heartbreak held her back, and she only nodded, her hand brushing his lightly, the contact fleeting yet electric. Emma returned home later, tired but alive with emotion, replaying every word, every glance, realizing that life was no longer just about safety, but about courage, about leaning into feelings that could hurt as much as they could heal. She understood that saying yes to the 11th date had not just brought her a companion for a night, it had brought her a mirror, showing her how deeply she could feel, how much she could hope, and how fragile yet precious love could be. The final night before Noah's departure approached, and Emma felt the bittersweet ache of impending goodbye. The city outside her window felt alive with possibility and danger at once. She stared at the lights, wondering if she could embrace the uncertainty, if she could risk loving fully even knowing it might end, and somewhere deep inside, she knew that the answer would define not only her heart but the life she was ready to live. The morning Noah was leaving, Emma woke with a tightness in her chest she hadn't felt before. The city outside her window looked the same, yet nothing felt ordinary. Every sound, every light, carried weight. She dressed quickly, barely eating breakfast, her mind racing with thoughts of the goodbye that awaited. She rehearsed words she might say, yet knew nothing would feel enough. At the airport, Noah was already waiting, standing near the gate with his luggage by his side, his calm presence both comforting and unbearable. When he saw Emma, his eyes softened, and he gave a small, tentative smile, the kind that carried both affection and regret. Emma felt her heart leap and drop at the same time. She wanted to laugh, cry, hold him forever, but the moment was fragile, like glass, one wrong word and it could shatter. They walked together slowly, not knowing how to begin, each step heavy with unspoken feelings. Emma's hands itched to reach out, to touch, but she held back, letting the tension build. Finally, Noah took her hands in his, warm and steady, and said softly, "Emma, you've changed me, more than you know." Her eyes stung with tears she refused to shed in public, but she smiled, nodding, feeling the truth of his words deep in her chest. The boarding announcement echoed, signaling the final call, and Emma felt panic rise, a desperate need to hold on to these fleeting moments, yet she knew she couldn't stop him. She could only choose how she would remember this, how she would carry it forward. Noah leaned closer, their foreheads almost touching. "I don't want this to end," he whispered, his voice trembling just slightly, and Emma felt a tear slip down, quickly brushing it away, refusing to give fear the satisfaction of victory. Weeks passed slowly, like stretched hours, texts and calls bridging the gap between Chicago and Vancouver, yet time zones and busy schedules made the connection fragile. Emma missed him more than she expected. The quiet evenings were hollow without his laughter, yet she also noticed a change in herself. She no longer feared the ache of absence, she could feel deeply without collapsing under it. She had learned to hold hope lightly, to trust that love could exist even across distance. One evening, a few months later, a letter arrived, handwritten, with a familiar handwriting she recognized immediately. Emma's hand shook as she unfolded it, the scent of paper and ink familiar, comforting. The words inside were simple but heavy with meaning. Noah wrote about his time in Chicago, about how leaving had made him realize where he truly belonged, about the lessons he had learned, and about Emma, the one who had made ordinary moments feel extraordinary. The letter revealed that he was coming back, not just for a visit, but to see if they could build something lasting. Emma read the words over and over, disbelief mixing with joy. The city outside her window seemed brighter, as if the lights themselves were celebrating with her. She felt a fluttering in her chest, a mixture of fear and hope, but this time, the hope felt stronger, steadier, more confident than ever before. When Noah returned, it was quiet at first, a cautious meeting at the same small cafe where their connection had deepened months earlier. Emma's heart raced, her palms were warm, and she noticed the familiar calm in his eyes, the gentle way he smiled when he saw her. It was as if no time had passed and yet everything had changed. They sat down together, talking about months apart, shared experiences, and unspoken feelings. The conversation flowed easily, naturally, like it had been waiting for this moment all along. Emma realized that love was not about grand gestures alone, but about consistency, attention, and care. It was about showing up, about listening, about letting the other person be exactly who they were, and Noah embodied that, in every word, every look, every touch that lingered longer than necessary. She felt seen, truly seen, and it made her heart swell in ways she hadn't thought possible. They walked the city streets together, the crisp air carrying the sense of fall, laughing over small jokes, sharing quiet silences. Emma felt a profound sense of belonging, a feeling that had been missing for too long. She could imagine a future with him, a life filled with ordinary adventures made extraordinary simply by being together. The fear of losing him had not disappeared entirely, but it was now tempered with trust and hope, a willingness to embrace love fully. One evening, standing under a street lamp in the quiet park where they had once sat together months ago, Noah took Emma's hands again, holding them firmly yet gently, and said, "I don't want to leave again, Emma, not without you." She smiled, her heart racing, feeling the truth in his words, the ache of longing replaced by a soft, steady warmth. She realized that saying yes to 11 dates had not just brought her fleeting moments, but had led her to this one, the person she truly wanted. The months of learning, of laughter, of heartbreak and hope, had taught Emma that love was a risk worth taking, that the courage to feel deeply, even when it scared her, was the only way to find something real. She leaned into Noah, feeling the steady beat of his heart, and knew that her world, once cautious and careful, had finally found balance, not upside down, but set right. As they walked home together, hand in hand, city lights glowing around them, Emma understood that life was about choices, about leaning into possibilities, about saying yes even when fear whispered no, and she smiled softly, ready for whatever the future held, because she had finally learned that love, patient, steady, and real, was worth every risk, every tear, every moment of hope, and she knew, without doubt, that this was only the beginning of their story, a story built not on luck, but on courage, connection, and the simple act of saying yes.